Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life when you look in the mirror and ask yourself, why am I letting things that don't matter control the parts of me that do? A moment when the weight of frustration sits on your chest, when the smallest inconvenience feels like a storm, and you wonder, why am I losing myself over something so small? I know that feeling, that tightness in your jaw, that heat rising in your chest, that voice whispering, react right now. But hear me with your heart, not your ears. You are bigger than the moment trying to break you. You are stronger than the spark trying to set your peace on fire, and your destiny, your purpose, your future. They are all too important to be shaken by something that won't even matter a week from now. You weren't born to be ruled by irritation. You weren't created to be pulled off your path every time life throws a pebble in your way. You are here to rise, to breathe, to choose calm over chaos, because your peace is worth fighting for. And today, right now, is the day you take that power back. There is a moment, so small, so quick, most people never notice it, when anger first taps on the door of your mind. It doesn't come in shouting. It doesn't storm the gates. It starts as a whisper, a flicker, a tightening in the chest that says, something isn't right. Learning to recognize that moment is one of the greatest acts of emotional power you will ever develop, because anger is not born at full strength. It grows through your reaction. When you pause, just pause, you interrupt its rise. You stop the flood before it crashes. You give yourself that breath, that space, that second to say, hold on, what's really happening here? Sometimes the trigger is exhaustion. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's a memory masquerading as a fresh problem. And sometimes it's not even the moment in front of you. It's the weight you've been carrying all week. Recognizing the trigger is recognizing that you have authority over your response, that your emotions may knock, but you choose whether they get invited in. And every time you catch yourself before the anger takes over, you take one step closer to being the version of yourself that reacts with strength, not impulse. When you learn to breathe before you break, everything changes. That breath isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's clarity coming back to you. Anger thrives in chaos. It wants you rushed, overwhelmed, triggered, and blind to the truth of the situation. But when you inhale deeply, you are sending a message to your mind and body. I'm in control. You're telling the storm inside you that it doesn't get to dictate your behavior today. Breathing gives you time to understand if the thing upsetting you is actually dangerous or simply irritating. It gives you time to decide whether this moment is worth the emotional price you would pay if you explode. Most of the time, that breath reveals something powerful. The thing that angered you is smaller than the reaction it demands. A delayed text, a careless comment, a minor inconvenience. Things that are not life-threatening, not life-changing, but if you don't slow down, they can rob you of your peace. Breathing pulls you out of the emotional fire long enough to see what's worth burning for and what isn't. Identifying the true trigger means digging deeper than the surface emotion. Anger rarely stands alone. It often disguises itself as the protector of something more vulnerable. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you may think you're angry at them, but maybe you're really angry at the long, exhausting day you already had. When a friend makes an insensitive remark, it may feel like rage, but maybe it's disappointment that they didn't understand you. When a plan falls apart, You may lash out, but maybe the truth is that you feel out of control and fear is pushing your buttons. Emotional triggers are layered, and until you peel them back, you'll keep reacting to the wrong thing. When you ask yourself, what exactly set me off? You begin to uncover patterns, old wounds, unmet expectations, unrealistic pressures you've placed on yourself. Recognizing the trigger is not about judging yourself, it's about freeing yourself. Because once you name it, you can manage it. And once you see it clearly, it loses its power to ambush you in moments of stress. The hardest part of mastering your anger is admitting when the trigger isn't external. It's internal. Sometimes it's not the world that's irritating you. It's the parts of yourself you've been ignoring. The dream you haven't chased. The boundaries you never set. The fatigue you never gave yourself permission to rest from. When you're overwhelmed on the inside, the smallest thing on the outside can set you off. But when you look within and say, what's really hurting me? You begin a journey toward emotional honesty. This honesty is not always comfortable, but it is liberating. It teaches you to stop blaming the world for storms that are happening inside your own heart. It teaches you to stop giving your anger a free pass to dominate every situation. It teaches you to take ownership. Ownership of your mind, ownership of your reactions, ownership of the peace you've been missing. Recognizing internal triggers is a form of emotional maturity that lifts you from reaction mode to reflection mode, where growth finally becomes possible. To recognize a trigger before it owns you means understanding that you are not powerless. You are not a leaf blown around by the winds of inconvenience. You are the one steering the ship, and your anger is not the captain. You are. Each day you will face moments that test your patience, challenge your calm, and try to pull you out of character. But every moment is also an opportunity to reclaim your composure. When you pause, breathe, and identify the truth behind your reaction, you separate the temporary irritation from your permanent identity. You begin to choose your responses rather than surrender to them. And in doing so, you create a life where peace is not an accident but a practice. A life where you stop giving anger permission to write your story. A life where every trigger becomes a teacher, not a trap. Recognizing the trigger before it owns you is the foundation of emotional strength. And once you master it, the world no longer gets to decide how you feel. You do. There comes a moment when you realize that not every situation deserves the same level of emotional investment. Some things are battles, and some things are noise. And when you learn to shift from reacting to everything to understanding what's actually happening, your entire world starts to breathe differently. Reaction is fast, impulsive, and often fueled by old wounds. Understanding is slow, intentional, and rooted in wisdom. When someone says something hurtful, your first instinct might be to defend yourself or to strike back. But when you step back and ask, is this really about me? You give yourself the power to see beyond the surface. Most of the time, their comment isn't even a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their frustration, fear, or confusion. And once you see that, your anger softens. Not because you're weak, but because you're awake. Understanding lifts you above the moment and shows you the difference between a threat and an irritation, between something that harms you and something that simply distracts you. This shift is where emotional freedom begins, because everything changes when you see clearly. Reactions are tied to ego. Understanding is tied to growth. The ego says, they shouldn't talk to me like that. Understanding asks, why might they be acting this way? Not to excuse bad behavior, but to free your heart from carrying weight it doesn't need. When you learn to view a situation from more than one angle, you stop seeing every annoyance as an attack. You begin to see that people project their emotions, their fears, and their insecurities outward. What feels like an insult may actually be their cry for help. What feels like disrespect may be rooted in their own lack of emotional tools. When you shift your perspective, you start to see people not as enemies, but as humans, flawed, struggling, and doing the best they can with what they know. And when you understand them, you no longer waste your energy reacting to the surface. You stay anchored, composed, and steady. That is a strength few people master. Reacting takes a second. Understanding takes a decision. Understanding also forces you to confront your own assumptions. Many times what we react to isn't the situation. It's the story we told ourselves about the situation. A delayed reply becomes rejection in our minds. A short comment becomes disrespect. Simple mistake becomes a personal insult. When you pause and shift your perspective, you ask the question that dissolves half your anger. Could there be another explanation? Maybe they were busy. Maybe they were tired. Maybe they didn't mean it the way you interpreted it. Maybe it's not about you at all. That realization is a weight off your shoulders. It gives you permission to stop personalizing everything. When you stop assuming the worst, your heart stops preparing for battle. You open the door to compassion for others and for yourself. And compassion is the opposite of anger. It cools the fire before it spreads. When you choose understanding over assumption, you rewrite the emotional script that once controlled your reactions. Shifting your perspective also means choosing where your energy goes. Energy is a limited resource. Every moment of anger steals a moment of peace, creativity, connection, and purpose. When you ask yourself, does this deserve my energy? You stop letting irritation drain you. Most of the things we get angry about are simply not worth the emotional cost. A rude stranger? Noise? A minor inconvenience? Noise. Something you won't remember next month, next week, or even tomorrow. Noise. Your life is too precious to be spent pouring energy into things that don't build you, bless you, or better you. When you focus on understanding instead of reacting, you conserve your emotional strength for what truly matters. Your goals, your loved ones, your peace, your purpose. You stop fighting meaningless battles and start protecting the parts of you that deserve to grow, not be drained. And that is how you begin to build a calmer, stronger, more intentional version of yourself. But perhaps the most powerful part of shifting your perspective is what it does to your relationships. When you stop assuming the worst and start looking deeper, you communicate differently. You listen differently. You love differently. Instead of reacting to someone's tone, you listen for their pain. Instead of fighting back, you seek clarity. Instead of fueling conflict, you become the calm in the room. That doesn't mean you allow disrespect. It means you understand the difference between conflict and communication. You learn when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to walk away. You master the art of emotional intelligence, the ability to feel deeply without breaking, to understand without surrendering your boundaries, and to respond without losing yourself. That is what happens when you shift from reaction to understanding. Your life elevates, your peace strengthens, your mind becomes clear. And suddenly, the things that once made you angry no longer have that power because you see them for what they are: noise, There comes a time in your life when you realize that peace is not something you stumble upon. It is something you protect, something you guard with intention, with strength, and with a level of self-respect that says, my mind, my heart, and my spirit are worth defending. Protecting your peace means understanding that not every battle deserves a response. Not every comment deserves your attention. And not every person deserves access to your emotional space. You begin to see that peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of clarity. And once you taste that clarity, once you feel what it's like to wake up without that emotional heaviness, you fight for it differently. You begin to choose your battles with wisdom and your reactions with awareness. You stop letting small things become big things. You stop letting the noise of the world drown out the calm inside you. Peace becomes your purpose, not because life is suddenly easy, but because you decide that your mental well-being matters more than winning arguments or proving points. When you treat peace as sacred, your entire life begins to shift towards strength, simplicity, and emotional sovereignty. Setting boundaries is the foundation of protecting your peace. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors that you choose to open or close based on what protects your emotional well-being. They are the moments when you say, "This is not okay with me." When you decide that your time, your energy, and your heart are not to be given away freely to people who drain them. A boundary is that quiet moment when you choose not to answer the phone, when you know the conversation will leave you anxious. It's saying no without guilt, because you understand that every yes to something harmful is a no to yourself. Boundaries teach others how to treat you, but more importantly, they teach you how to treat yourself. They remind you that peace is not found by avoiding people. It's found by choosing people who respect your space, your heart, and your energy. And once you learn to set boundaries, you stop expecting others to magically protect your peace. You realize it's your responsibility and your right to decide what enters your life and what does not. Choosing calm is one of the most powerful acts of courage in a world that constantly tries to provoke you. Calm is not passive. It is not weakness. It is controlled strength. It is saying, I will not let this moment turn me into someone I'm not. Calm is knowing that your reaction has the power to either escalate a situation or dissolve it. That your silence sometimes speaks louder than your words. That your peace matters more than proving a point. Calm is choosing to breathe instead of break. Choosing to let go instead of hold grudges. Choosing understanding over assumption. And yes, choosing to walk away when the situation threatens your sanity. Calm gives you control over your life, your emotions, and your direction. It keeps you anchored when everything around you tries to shake you. It gives you the clarity to see the situation for what it is, not what your emotions in the heat of the moment convince you it is. Calm is strength disguised as softness, and anyone who masters it becomes powerful beyond measure. To protect your peace, you must also become intentional about where your focus goes. Your focus is precious. It is the fuel that shapes your day, your mindset, and your future. When you allow small things to steal your focus, they steal your productivity, your joy, and your emotional balance. A rude comment, a minor inconvenience, a mistake in your day. None of these deserve to derail your entire mood, but they will if you let them. Protecting your peace means practicing emotional triage, deciding what truly matters and letting go of everything that doesn't. It means refusing to give your power away to things that are temporary, unimportant, or irrelevant. You start to ask, will this matter in 5 minutes, 5 days, and then 5 years? And most of the time, the answer is no. When you discipline your mind to focus on what brings growth, not what brings irritation, your life becomes clearer. You begin to move with purpose instead of reacting in chaos. You become the guardian of your mind, not a prisoner to your triggers. To protect your peace like it's your purpose means living your life with intention, maturity, and self-respect. It means surrounding yourself with people who bring calm, not chaos. It means choosing your environment as carefully as you choose your words. It means waking up each day and deciding that your peace is worth the effort, the boundaries, the discipline, and the emotional honesty it takes to maintain it. Peace is not accidental. It is built through choices, protected through discipline, and strengthened through awareness. And when you treat peace as a priority instead of an afterthought, everything in your life begins to align. Your relationships become healthier. Your days become lighter. Your reaction time becomes slower. Your mind becomes clearer. And your heart becomes stronger. Protect your peace like it's your purpose, because it is. Without peace, you cannot think clearly, love fully, create boldly, or live freely. Peace is not a luxury. It is a necessity. And once you learn how to protect it, you will never again allow small things to steal what took you so long to build. Emotional mastery is not something you wake up with one day. It is something you build piece by piece through consistent choices that shape your inner world. It is the discipline of training your mind to respond instead of react, to rise instead of crumble, to pause instead of explode. This practice begins with the simple understanding that your emotions are not your enemies, but they are not your masters either. They are messages, signals trying to show you something, but you decide what to do with them. Daily discipline teaches you to be the one steering the ship. It allows you to catch yourself in moments of frustration, breathe in clarity, and exhale intention. It's the kind of discipline that doesn't scream but whispers. You are in control. And when you learn to build your emotional strength little by little, you begin to see that every day offers an opportunity to practice calmness, to practice patience, to practice strength. Emotional mastery is less about perfection and more about consistency. It's about showing up for yourself, even on the days you feel like falling apart. Because the effort you put in daily becomes the peace you carry naturally. Reflection is one of the most powerful tools in achieving emotional mastery. When you reflect, you step outside of the chaos and become an observer of your own thoughts. You begin to notice patterns. What triggers you? What soothes you? What strengthens you? What drains you? Reflection isn't about dwelling on mistakes. It's about learning from them so they don't control you again. When you ask yourself, why did I react that way? What was I really feeling? You uncover truths that help you grow. Maybe the anger wasn't about the situation, but about exhaustion. Maybe the frustration wasn't about someone else, but about your own expectations. Reflection brings awareness, and awareness is the first step toward mastery. It is through reflection that you understand yourself deeply enough to change your habits and your reactions. It gives you clarity to move differently, to think differently, and to become emotionally stronger. And when you make reflection a daily practice, even a few minutes, it becomes your inner compass, guiding you toward wisdom instead of impulsiveness. Gratitude is another cornerstone of emotional discipline. It has the power to shift your state of mind instantly, pulling you away from negativity and grounding you in appreciation. When you practice gratitude daily, you train your mind to focus on what is present rather than what is missing, on what is working rather than what is broken. Gratitude doesn't erase problems, but it strengthens your ability to face them without collapsing emotionally. It reminds you of the blessings, the opportunities, the relationships, and the moments of beauty that surround you, even in difficult times. When you start your morning with gratitude or end your night with reflection on what went well, you build emotional resilience. Your heart becomes lighter. Your mind becomes calmer. Your reactions soften because gratitude shifts your attention from irritation to appreciation, from stress to stability. It teaches you that even in the chaos, there is something worth holding on to. This simple practice becomes a form of emotional training, shaping your mindset in ways that help you stay steady when life gets loud. Silence is one of the most underestimated tools of emotional mastery. In a world filled with noise, notifications, conversations, opinions, and distractions, silence becomes a sanctuary for your mind. When you spend even a few minutes a day in silence, you give your brain room to breathe. You allow your emotions to settle, your thoughts to organize, and your spirit to reset. Silence teaches you patience. It teaches you stillness. It teaches you how to hear your own heart without the interference of the world. Emotional chaos thrives in noise, but emotional mastery thrives in quiet spaces. Silence allows you to reconnect with yourself, to check in with your feelings, and to regain the clarity you lose throughout the day. It is in silence that you practice patience, develop inner calm, and master the art of choosing peace. When silence becomes a discipline, it becomes easier to stay composed in moments of conflict, easier to respond instead of react, and easier to recognize what truly matters. Silence is not empty. It is full of wisdom. Daily discipline is the thread that ties all these practices together. Emotional mastery is not built in dramatic breakthroughs, but in small, consistent actions repeated over time. It's choosing to breathe when frustration rises. It's choosing to walk away instead of escalate. It's choosing to reflect instead of suppress. It's choosing gratitude instead of resentment. It's choosing silence instead of chaos. These choices become habits, and these habits become your emotional strength. Eventually, what once triggered you barely moves you. What once threw you off balance becomes manageable. What once stole your peace no longer has that power, because you have trained your mind to stay steady, disciplined, and centered. Daily discipline makes emotional mastery possible. It shapes your character, strengthens your spirit, and elevates your life. And when you commit to these practices, reflection, gratitude, silence, you become someone who is no longer controlled by the storms around you. You become the calm in the storm. You become the steady hand in the chaos. You become the master of your emotional world. When you step back and look at everything we've explored together, one truth rises above all the rest. Peace is a choice, and anger is a habit, one that can be unlearned through awareness, intention, and strength of spirit. Your journey toward emotional freedom begins the moment you recognize that you have more control over your inner world than you were ever taught. You now understand that anger rarely comes from the present moment. It comes from memories, expectations, heavy days, and tired hearts. But when you slow down long enough to recognize your triggers, you stop letting emotions ambush you. You stop letting simple things steal parts of you that were never meant to be lost. You gain the power to redirect your energy toward what actually deserves it. You now know that shifting from reaction to understanding isn't about being passive. It's about being wise. Anyone can explode, but it takes strength to pause. It takes courage to look deeper. When you begin to understand instead of react, you free yourself from the burden of always being on alert. You start to see people as human, not as threats. You start to treat situations as information, not invitations to battle. This is emotional maturity, the freedom to decide how you will show up no matter how others behave. You've learned that protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary. Your peace fuels your purpose, your relationships, your creativity, and your strength. When you guard your mind with boundaries, choose calm over chaos, and refuse to give small things permission to ruin your day, you grow into a version of yourself that moves with purpose, not pressure. Peace is not something you find. It is something you build with discipline, courage, and consistency. And you've discovered that emotional mastery is not a destination. It is a daily practice. Through reflection, you learn from your patterns. Through gratitude, you shift your focus from what's wrong to what's right. Through silence, you regain clarity and reconnect with yourself. These small disciplines create big transformation. They steady your mind, strengthen your heart, and make you resilient in moments that once broke you. Mastery is not about never feeling anger. It is about not letting anger run your life. So as you walk away from this message, carry this truth with you. You have the power to choose your peace in every moment. The world may test you, people may challenge you, life may overwhelm you, but you are not powerless. You're capable of pausing. You're capable of understanding. You're capable of choosing calm. You're capable of protecting your peace like it is the core of your purpose, because it is. Thank you for your time, your heart, and your presence. May you walk with strength, hold on to peace, and rise above every storm that tries to take you off your path. God bless you, and thank you.